This is what happens when you drop the Titanic from a height of 1 meter. It just gets a little wet, but no harm done. From 5 meters, it's likely to take a little bit more damage, but still survives somewhat intact. It even jumps right out of the water because it's so excited. Once it evens itself out, it'll probably still even drive. I would consider this survival, but we're going to escalate a little bit today. Dropping it from a much greater height means that it actually fully submerges once it hits the ground and splits entirely in half. I suspect this one's not going to keep driving along the top of the water, but we can find out. In fact, the engine doesn't turn on anymore, and it'll just make its way to the bottom. So therein lies the question, how high can we drop it from? Turns out we can put it really high up there. So when it falls from 1,000 meters above the ocean, this is what it does upon impact with the water. It completely disintegrates. Pretty sure that one's not going to go anywhere. Okay, this time we've added a little gravitational assist, and it blew up so hard on the water that the pieces are bouncing off the bottom of the ocean. We've actually turned the Titanic into particles, and it's only taken us a minute to do it. But we're definitely not done with this thing yet. We can even make our own waves. Little waves basically make no difference. Bigger waves are going to make somewhat of a difference. We're getting the bow a little bit wet. We basically just cleaned the Titanic. So let's try a little bit of a bigger, girthier wave and see how the ship likes that. That's getting the bow a lot wetter and is giving it a rinse all the way along. But I think ultimately it's actually maybe not going to survive this one as much as I thought. And I'm not really sure what's going on with this wave. It's just kind of hanging out here. The ship is still technically buoyant though. It's not sinking yet. That means we're going to have to do a little bit better with our waves. So we're going to put a big one on this side and we're going to put a big one on this side, and they'll hopefully hit the middle of the ship at the same time and make a big wave right in the center. While we're waiting, we'll see what either absolutely enormous tidal wave does to either end of the ship. Oh, maybe it's actually going to lift it right up out of the water. That would be fun. It kind of almost did. Okay, the ship didn't like that very much, and it's lifting the front end up. We did it. We cut the boat in half using only water. I doubt there was many survivors on that one. Well, there might have been, but within about 30 seconds there won't be because they're 100 meters underwater. Apparently this didn't get water filled, probably because it turned upside down, so that one's going back to the surface. Well, I've managed to distribute either half of the ship very far from each other. But since this one's not broken enough yet, we can give it a little bit of assist if we want and disintegrate it. It turns out you can turn up the speed of the waves. That's why the ship looks like it's going 1,000 miles an hour. So that means you can put this ship under a great deal of stress. If you make the waves even just a little bit bigger, the ship now looks like it's made out of jello. And to help it along with that, we'll add a few of our own little waves on top of the waves. It's like 3 levels of waves and it's breaking in half. I was hoping it would put up with a little bit more abuse than that, but it's a pretty old ship. It's interesting how it is breaking apart from the rear though. I'm not sure why there was so much stress, but I'm not going to ask questions. I think we've determined that the front half of the ship is a lot bigger than the last. I also didn't know you could make inverted waves, so that's gonna get fun. That thing's gonna submarine right under there and it's gonna be sunk forever. With everybody on board, we're also now doing a wheelie, so we never knew that Titanic could do tricks. Okay, I've gone ahead and spawned in a fresh ship that wasn't quite so broken. Now we can make some inverted waves. I don't know how big it's gonna let me make these, but presumably pretty big, so you can actually like do a huge gap in the water where the ship's gonna go flying right off. It still makes a wave in the center, but it's going to kind of plow through that, I think. I don't really know how hydrodynamics work, but it's enough to break the ship in half really hard. I really hope they build these a lot tougher these days, because this ship cannot put up with anything. But I've also just realized I can kind of use this to make an even bigger wave, because I can go all the way down like that, and once there's a bit of clearance in the way, we can go all the way up, and there's an enormous size tsunami. So this is already twice as big as what I thought the biggest was. The ship's just hanging out, there's no propulsion going on it right now, and oh, we might even get to hit a fish on this one. Okay, the ship's already breaking and hasn't even gotten to the wave yet. We're gonna have to rethink how we do this, but I've got an idea how to make that work. Even a fish are falling through the water. Ooh, I made it do a backflip though, so that's a first. Okay, here's how we do this. We do a big gap in the water somewhere way over here till it gets something like, I don't know, that far, and then we put the wave in, and then we just sort of place the ship, I think right here, somewhere in the water, hopefully. And then it's gonna get the full brunt of that wave while it's still floating and it didn't break before getting to it. We might want to turn the engines on. So we're turning into a submarine. We might make it up to the surface though. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna survive this. We tried our best, but that's what happens when the Titanic hits an enormous wave. This little guy is called an impact bomb. When you hit it with a hammer, it explodes. When you hit the regular ship with the hammer, it doesn't explode. So let's create what I like to call a chain reaction. I guess we're going to start with this hamburger style and see how this goes. I'm also going to do this while drinking a lot of coffee, so it's maybe not the straightest line in the world. But you know what? If you want straight lines, you've come to the wrong place. Basically, we've made a floating bomb. Now we just delicately need to tap one end, and off it goes. Why did it blow up from the middle? The front ones didn't even go off properly. I like the result, I'm just confused as to how we got there, but that's a pretty comprehensive destruction. But we're not done yet. I don't know why these didn't blow up properly. We're gonna try that again, but I've turned the bombs up to level 1000. I know what you're thinking.
You're exaggerating. You didn't turn them up to level 1000.
Well, I guess there's only one way to find out for sure. We'll go ahead and hit the bomb, and the entire ship is gone except for the smokestacks. That actually sent the debris so far, like it's bouncing off the bottom of the ocean 40 miles away. So what about this one of those bombs turned up to 1000? Yeah, that absolutely destroys the entire center of the ship. There is also this handy slice tool where you can just kind of cut the ship apart a little bit. So I bet we can go like that and the ship will still run. It'll still move, it just maybe won't love it. Ooh, you know, we can actually start whittling it away to see how much of the ship we can remove and have it still run. This way will be more aerodynamic anyway. I've seen modern ships, they don't look anything like this. I feel like it's already moving a lot faster. You know, all this stuff up here, you don't even need any of that. That doesn't need to be on a boat. Okay, let's try and, we're gonna do this while the ship is moving, so it's kind of subject to the whims of the ocean, but if I go like that, is that okay? Yeah, that's okay-ish so far. I didn't quite cut through it properly because my sword isn't that good. That's probably a little bit user error, to be fair. Might have taken a little bit more off the front than I had to. Well, we're starting to take on some water there, but I think I proved you can actually remove 90% of the Titanic and have it still work as the Titanic. Even the rear half tends to work by itself. That kind of makes me wonder something. Like, it's still going by itself. I've removed like 95% of the Titanic and it still works. Maybe if we cut it sort of like that, that shape will keep it above water even better. As soon as we get rid of this little piece. Apparently that's where like the actual engine was housed because it finally died. So let's sort of try that again, but let's cut it maybe here. And then maybe that'll hold itself above water. Nope, you gotta remove the top half before you do that, otherwise it just turns into a submarine. That also somehow killed the engine, so I'm not really sure what happened there. We'll go ahead and call this a victory by cutting the whole thing into a bunch of pieces. I also have something called the swirl tool. So I think that means I can actually just sort of swirl the ship and maybe even leave it going straight up and down. Just a little more, we're almost there. Okay, it does not like that stress one little bit. I guess it is a rather long object. But that's also this tool at like basic power. I mean, it's pretty strong, I guess, to send a billion-ton ship swirling through the ocean. But I don't know, we could probably turn this tool up to 1000%. There's a lot of different tools that are very complicated, so I just turned a bunch of them up to level 1000, and apparently this still wasn't one of them. I mean, even as it is though, it's still pretty good. This might have actually been turned up. It is moving a lot quicker than it was before, and the ship didn't break apart yet, which is kind of interesting. It's just kind of an interesting game to mess around with. I've turned the simulation quality up by several times to make it a little more realistic, and then I accidentally placed a mountain in the way. But that's also good news, because who knew we could actually place a mountain in here? We can probably also try something fun here. I want to see if we can sort of make like a slope for the Titanic so we can like slide it down the mountain and into the water to give it a proper launch. Don't worry, this is a well thought out idea. Probably gonna need to try and rotate it a little bit before it hits the ground. Or maybe we could just gently set it down and then it won't break. We'll help it along just a little bit, it'll be fine. No wonder it wasn't moving properly, the engine wasn't on. This kind of tells me we're gonna need a steeper slope. But I bet you've never seen the Titanic thrown down a 10,000 foot tall mountain before. Yeah, it's got a little ways to go, but it'll be fine by the time it gets there. Now it's picking up speed and absolutely disintegrating while it's at it. To be fair, it wasn't the straightest of mountains, so you might have been at a slight disadvantage. And there we go, the boat finally made it to the water. At which point it promptly sank, but it's still making its way down the mountain. That's so much fun. Okay, clearly the problem was the mountain wasn't steep enough, so we're gonna make it extra steep. So we have a much bigger, steeper mountain to work with now. But one of the other problems is that there's no water on the mountains. So we're gently gonna set that down there where it's not going to break too much. Okay, we have a repair tool so we can sort of put it back together a little bit. I just figured we could put the water inside the ship. Then we don't have to worry about it being in the ocean at all. It's got the water on board with it. At least in the front to make it a little front heavy to let it start going. I've got to repair it as we're going. Okay, this time I've got it under control. I've got the ship pre-rotated. That way you shouldn't have so much stress and we can put it directly on this slope. So if we put it maybe there, it's going to break in half immediately, but that's okay. We'll help its tail end down a little bit too. There we go. Now it'll make its way back to the water in a proper launch. Definitely would have been fun if we could put some water up here to let it go down. Because without the water, it doesn't really function as a ship anymore. It just kind of shreds itself into particles. At least so far. Maybe it'll pick up some proper smooth momentum by the bottom, but it's got a little ways to go. Really helps to put it into perspective that this is as big of a tsunami as I can make. That's absolutely like world destroying. And the mountain is that big. And then our ship is still making its way down to the bottom, but it's still going to be a minute. I tried something called the Thanos snap as the ship was getting close to the bottom, and it turned everything into dust again. So that's an easy way to destroy the ship. Not as exciting as some of the other methods. What happens if we drop the ship on top of the spike? Is it going to split it in half? Is it going to impale it? Is anything at all going to happen? It cuts rather cleanly through it. And then it's a race for both sides to hit the ocean. I think the left one's going to win on this one. And probably no survivors there either. So let's try that again, but let's add a little bit of downforce to it. That way it really splits in half and disintegrates and blew up into nothing when it hit the water. See, that's as destructive as a Thanos snap, but it's a lot more fun. Actually, I bet we could throw it side to side too. Go into the wall. There it goes. And from the other side with a little bit less force. This is still obviously going to be fairly damaging to the poor ship. But some of the parts survived. Can't say the same about the people on board though. They're probably out of luck. Did you know there's an antimatter bomb in the game? Because neither did I. I don't really know how to detonate that. I assume I have to maybe hit it with a hammer? I don't know what happened. Even the camera went crazy there. Wait, where's it going? Does it have to impact something to blow up? Oh, it's creating a black hole. It's pulling the ship down with it. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. Where are we going now? So you can only put the antimatter bomb on the ship itself. I'm not allowed to put it on fish or ground, but it will sit on top of the rocks once it gets going. So what if we just take a little slice of that? And then if we're able to grab it before it gets too far away, put it somewhere ridiculous, like way up there, slap the bomb to it up here, which actually works, and then give it a little smash. How far does that black hole go? It's affecting the ship already, and it's way down there. We're making it fly backwards. Oh, that thing even flies by itself. Wow, that's got a strong radius on it. Wow, okay. Then it disintegrates itself. That's also a super fun way of destroying the ship. Okay, this time I think I want a slightly bigger slice. And then we're going to keep flicking this thing up to the top of Mount Olympus. And we can put the bomb away up here. And that's going to be a bit experimental because that's a long ways from our boat. I don't know if it's got that kind of reach on it. We can't even see the bomb anymore. It's actually affecting the ship. Not very strongly, but it is actually pulling it in from way up there. Oh, it's going to crunch the ship. Okay, it still did the ship in pretty bad. Why are the sharks not affected by anti-gravity bombs? You can also do multiples of these. I don't think that's going to do very good things for the ship, but that does give me another fun idea. For now, we'll just let all these go and kind of create their own little black holes at their own vortexes. Okay, great. We made our own black hole. Okay, so if we make one of these here, and then we go, yeah, like that, and then make another wall on that side. We got to make strong walls on either side of this. And then roughly an equal distance away, we're going to do sort of the same thing, except not screw it up. Then we just need a few itty bitty pieces of this ship. And then we got to place them up there very carefully. And then we have two antimatter bombs on either side of the ship, if you see where this is going. We're going to have a little tug of war using a Titanic. So activate one, activate two. They'll start pulling the Titanic either direction pretty shortly, and we'll see which one's stronger. If either of them. Oh, the right one's winning slightly, but it was activated first. Are they going to fight each other? Oh, that one's getting sucked towards the left one. I think we have a pretty clear winner here. It was the one on the right. So say we do that same thing, but on land. This time I'm going to activate the left one first because it's a little farther away, and I'm going to do them fairly together. The ship did have some cracks already in it, so maybe this won't actually affect it as much if it's on land. Nope, there it goes. Oh, they're fighting properly over it now. And the left one I think is probably going to win. It sure did. And we're going back to the right now. Next, I want to see what happens if we turn the waves naturally up to their maximum setting. So they have really big ups and downs. They're not moving any faster, but they do have big swells up and down. So let's see how a regular Titanic holds up against an enormously changing sea. Well, it's underwater. Now it's halfway out of the water. Now it's flying. Now it's halfway into the water. Now it's really flying. Oh, that's not going to be good for it at all. It's going to hit the ground. That's kind of cinematic, though. And it's back out of the water again. Alright, well, it very clearly can't handle maximum waves. But we can still turn the speed up a lot for how quick those waves go. Alright, so let's put in a fresh ship, and it's going to deal with the dancing waves that are probably just going to beat it up right where it sits. That's kind of neat. Yeah, that pretty much disintegrated the thing in an instant anyways. Actually, what about if we just have the Titanic moving along under its own force and we ram it straight into a wall? Pretty sure it's already going max speed, at least as max as we can go under normal circumstances. And it's kind of like an iceberg, but more solid, because this one's attached to the ground and made of rock. And yep, that actually folded it pretty good. And now the rear end, also given a good smash. Perfect. I found a setting for something called ultraviolet mode. I'm not entirely sure what that does, but we can find out if it makes a difference when this thing runs headfirst into a mountain at full speed. Is this going to be ultraviolet or regular violent? So far that was mostly just regular violent. Still pretty fun, but we can do better. Okay, a few more changes. We made the fish a little bigger. That one can even fly. But I turned the power of the ship up by quite a lot. So that thing's really going to get moving now, and we're probably going to see the difference once it's done flooding itself. Oh, it actually killed its own engine because it flooded itself so quickly. But it still hit the wall with a very violent reaction. Okay, so a few adjustments, but I think we're onto a good thing here. Okay, I've left the ship at full speed, but I also turned the toughness of the ship up. At least I think I did, so we'll see what happens here. Oh, interesting. It bends like a banana now. I don't know what I just did, but I'm going to enjoy this a lot. It just stuck to the wall. Like, I'm not actually doing anything to it. It did this to itself. I was going to adjust the terrain and go like that, but it's... we made it fly. It's just flying now for some reason. I just made it really quick and really tough, and now it's flying. Now it's going upwards. Sure, we'll just let it go on this little journey and see where it winds up. It's... okay, I don't know what's happening. Oh, it's coming back down now. It just had some like residual force that sent it upwards. Oh, never mind. It's going back into the sky. I don't know what it's doing anymore. Wait, it's coming down. And that might waterlog it in. There goes its flying adventure. All right, well, down to the bottom it goes, where it will remain forever the mystery ship. I just kind of want to try this again at full speed with its super rigidity, because once it gets going actually full speed, I then want to smack it into a wall. It's so quick, it actually does. It's like planing just above the water, like a hydrofoil. So we'll put something in its way to stop it a little bit, and that killed the ship. Well, actually the engine's still running. It didn't entirely kill it. Everyone on board is dead, but the ship itself, still not bad. Okay, I'm going to borrow a few pieces of the ship again, and then we're going to put a few antimatter bombs on and give those a little smash to see if we can turn the ship into spaghetti in a proper way. Given the strength of these things, I am a little bit curious to see what exactly they're going to do. The one on the right obviously triggered first, so it's obviously a little bit stronger, but it's got a metal banana to deal with. It pulled it right through the wall. And now it's crunching it up against the wall, and that's got to be under a lot of force. It phased it through the wall. It was so strong it defied the rules of physics. The ship's a lot more fun when it's tough. So what about a bomb just sort of there? That's hopefully going to turn this jello-y thing into some kind of jello-y spaghettification. It's slowly folding. The ship doesn't know what to do with itself because it's trying to pull itself inwards. And there we go. We've turned the Titanic into some kind of monstrosity that's now flying again. That one works really, really well. All right, well, since the ship is again super tough, let's take it to the top of the mountain and try it again. And this is a really big mountain that puts the other mountains to shame. If you don't believe me, we can try and zoom out, but like it's actually hard to zoom out enough to properly see this. Wait, there we go. We're allowed to a little bit here, but now the ship's over there. Well, there we go. You'll get the idea. What happened to the ship? Where'd the back end of it go? Oh, maybe I put it off the edge of the map. That might actually eat it. Anyway, we don't need a rear end of a ship where we're going. We need to get this jello thing down the mountain, and hopefully by the time it's near the bottom, it's going light speed. We can give it a little bit of a push forward. The mountain will get steeper. Maybe we should have turned friction down a little bit. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere a little bit. We're going to start working our way down the mountain. It does get stuck on these jaggedy edges, so we'll give it a little bit of a push again to get it going. I'm not the smoothest mountain drawer, so we're going to run into these hiccups here and there. Like, I don't think it's going to love this particular little spike, and it's headed right for it, nose heavy. Alright, well, let's give it a little more push, and then it's going to head downhill in a hurry. It started its wiggle, so that's a good sign. Okay, get going. Faster. There we go. That's more... oh, we're going to hit a spike again. And we still got a long ways down to go. But it will make it to the water in one piece, even with us helping it along gingerly in some points. And there we go. That'll still float. It's just ergonomic. And perhaps made for... going under the water rather than across it. Does the engine still work? Yeah, the engine still works perfectly fine. The ship itself doesn't, though. It's now going to spin in circles because gravity doesn't exist anymore. Sure. Okay, I've made the ship so powerful at this point, it actually flies through the air. I turned friction down, I turned engines up. I was trying to take it to the top of the mountain under control of its engines, but it won't go down the mountain anymore because it just flies away instead. So I think I pretty thoroughly ruined the world. Okay, well, what happens when the tough ship hits the water at those speeds? It still disintegrates and bounces back into the moon. All right, well, we've got some fun ideas to accomplish with this one still, but there's a lot of potential here.